All right.
All right, here we are on the podcast, Geoff and Didi, once again for that ass.
Man, we're back in the Geoff and Didi podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's excited.
Yeah, meeting people, shaking hands, reaching out to the public.
Kissing babies. Kissing babies.
Yeah. Taking photos with old people.
Photo ops.
Uh-huh.
That's key.
Opportunities.
Well, if you've got time, yeah, you could say opportunities. Yeah. But those of us on the go might just say ops.
Yeah. When they say opportunity knocks, so let it in.
And I couldn't agree with that more.
Mm-hmm. What's up, Geoff?
Well,
What's been going on?
Well, man, not too much. I've got taken myself kind of a 4-day weekend kind of vacation thing. I'm furious that I have 3 weeks of paid vacation from my job.
Yeah.
And I want to use it. And I want to use it in a way where I go home and don't have to work. Mm-hmm. It seems very reasonable to me. I don't know. I scheduled this a long time in advance, and when it finally came, I worked half a day today, even though I was supposed to be off.
Well, good for you for taking the vacation, first of all.
Thank you.
First of all, making the concerted effort to do it. I think that when you're working, it's kind of hard to take time for yourself, but it sounds like you're not really being afforded the opportunity to take time for yourself.
No. Part of that's my bad because I'm responsible for budgeting my time.
Yeah.
But I don't know the machinery that's in place, if you will, doesn't make it easy to not come to work or whatever.
Because you have sort of this continuous relationship with the people you're working with.
Well, right.
That doesn't really take a break. It doesn't.
No, exactly. The jargon, like in a lot of sales gigs or whatever, they call it a pipeline. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so you've got, you're taking applications and putting things in the beginning of the pipeline, and then you're working on them throughout, and then you're there at the end. Like yesterday, I did a loan signing, which represented essentially the end of a 2-month process. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, I've gotten started other, transactions for better or worse, whatever. Anyway, so, as I'm trying to relax, I've got a purchase, that's supposed to take place the 15th of next month. Mm-hmm. And that should really get, that's mostly what I worked on today, but it's like that, that's a lot of pressure that needs to happen, or this Vietnamese guy's not going to be able to buy his first house.
Yeah.
I think what kind of last name is Nguyen? The Nguyen?
That's Vietnamese.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought so. Yeah.
Like sort of the Nguyen, like Nguyen.
Right.
Anything like that. I'm not an expert,
No.
but I'm pretty sure that's Vietnamese.
I think it is. I didn't ask him if it was Vietnamese or not, but I did ask him how it was pronounced because I always thought I was doing it right, but he just says Win.
Win?
Like W-I-N.
Oh, I've heard Gwen.
Really?
Because I'm like, hi, Dr. Nguyen. He's like, oh, it's Gwen.
So you know what it probably is it's probably a sound that English speakers don't naturally make. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just like we don't know the difference. We don't know that we're saying it wrong. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. And then so maybe it's just a matter of what the closest thing is. I don't know.
Well, Vietnamese people are cool and everything, but I want to reiterate,
Yeah.
Congrats on taking some time for yourself.
Thank you.
Laying back in the cut and just relaxing. You deserve it.
I am. Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, I am kind of laying back in the cut. Speaking of relaxing and taking time off everything, a short time ago you were talking about, because you were studying your ass off for the bar exam.
Yes.
You took the bar exam, and I don't think there was even a complete 5 business day break that you took. I don't even think you were not. I think it might have been 3 days or something where you kind of didn't do anything other than, whatever.
You're absolutely right about that.
Am I right about that?
I think my fatal flaw is I work too hard, or I never stop moving.
Like your weakness is that you're too strong.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the issue.
I like to think that I have a heart of gold, and it doesn't really matter how strong I am, because in the end, I'm a softie. I'm a softie.
Right. And gold is a soft metal. So Yeah.
Speaking of gold, are you buying into that? I know you're big on stocks. You buying gold?
No, sir.
Why not?
No. The information that I have picked up, because there's people who tell you it's the best thing in the world, people who tell you it's not a good investment. Yeah. I stumbled across these guys. They do a radio show, I think locally, and they're I don't know, financial advisors, I guess, but their show is mostly about mutual funds. Buying which mutual funds to buy.
Totally.
And how to whatever, they seem tremendously conservative investors. But anyways, but it comes up gold, and they kind of have this rant they went on, and it made sense to me. Mm-hmm. And the rant is, gold is a hedge against the currency, as I understand it, right? So if the currency becomes devalued and you have gold, then your gold is worth more of the currency. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's the theory, right? Mm-hmm. But gold in the last year, they said it, and then I went and looked it up, and I forget what it is now, but gold is over the last year, the gold is down 30% or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I looked, and whatever they said, they were dead right.
Really?
Yeah. And so in 2013, I think the Dow or whatever, my measly portfolio was up 25% or something like that. I think it's pretty common, 20-ish% or whatever. So that means if you had your money in gold that wasn't in the stock market, you would have been 50% less than what you could have been. Essentially, okay. You know what I mean? Or whatever, it combined, So not only would you be down in value, but you would be, you'd also be in what missed opportunity. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Where if you just had any old Joe Schmo mutual fund, that it would have increased. So when it comes to gold, the other thing it said about gold was that gold, because what's money really but purchasing power? This is an interesting subject to me. But money's only purchasing power. And he said that 2,000 or 4,000 years ago, an ounce of gold could buy you a very, not the best, but a very good custom-made suit of clothes. Mm-hmm. 1 ounce of gold was worth clothes that, you were, your good, sharp suit of clothes.
Yes. A debutante might wear.
Right. What, like robes in those days, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas today, an ounce of gold is worth roughly what it costs to buy a suit of clothes. Mm-hmm. So if you think that, you know what I mean, you had what appreciation has happened with gold over the last 4,000 years? Zero.
It's just gold.
It's just the exact same thing, And the other thing too is people talk about gold. The people who talk about gold usually are trying to sell you gold. Mm-hmm. And because the thing is, if you want to buy gold, man, you go online and buy it digitally. But they don't want you to do that. They want you to buy, they want you to buy their coins and bars of gold. Mm-hmm. Because it's
just 9/11 collector's coins. Do you remember that?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, that was such a goddamn scam. And actually, I remember too that it came out in the news that they weren't, that the metals within it weren't actually part of the Trade Center. So they
was that supposed to be the thing?
They were gold coins with shards of the rebar of the World Trade Center, and it turned out that it was just totally bogus.
That's kind of morbid.
Yeah, isn't that terrible, man?
Well, the other thing too is they probably boasted that some percentage of the sale goes to support some relief effort.
Yeah. I remember feeling that it was despicable. I did want to piggyback off your gold conversation. Do you remember the wrestler Gold Dust?
Gold Dust. Yeah. I do. He was a little after my time, but I know I had lost interest before he showed up. But I know what you're talking about.
Was that the beginning of the feminization of wrestling?
Do you think wrestling was feminized?
Absolutely. For a brief time. Goldust came in and men were kind of acting like strippers. It was sort of before, what is it called? The Attitude Era?
The Attitude Era.
Sort of this buffer zone between the Golden Age and the Attitude Era. I'm not turning this into a subject of conversation. It's just an observation and a feeling.
Just a feeling.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to. I would beg to differ because, of course, before before Gold Dust, you certainly had Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Yeah.
Who was very Chippendale Stripper-ish.
Yeah, sure.
And you also had Ravishing Rick Rude.
True.
And that guy was...
Simply ravishing.
Simply ravishing, man. Yeah. Simply ravishing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and Shawn Michaels. He was a former male stripper.
Was he?
Right?
Yeah.
I thought he was.
Well, it's... Yeah. I mean, you know what's funny is, as a little kid, very young, I remember being really excited to watch wrestling. We had a babysitter. It was Brandy Hamilton across the street. My old neighbor.
Tim Hamilton's
sister, big sister. And she came over, and actually I used to see her on Facebook. But anyways, she came over and was going to babysit us. It was awesome. And we were going to get to watch wrestling because whatever, I don't remember. But and we were like, oh, wrestling. I mean, I guess not get to watch, but we were watching wrestling, and it was amazing to us that she would be like, we're like, you like wrestling?
Yeah.
Right? And now I don't know how old she must have, she might very well have been 13. I don't know. You know what I mean?
But that seems ancient when you're.
Oh, I was, you know what I mean? Yeah. But the thing is like, you like wrestling? Mm-hmm. Like, why would you like wrestling? And she said something about how, like, some of the guys are cute or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And it never occurred to me that any of these guys could be, like, sexy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is funny because I just thought they were, like, badass tough guys.
They were just fighters.
Yeah, they were just tough. Like, and if, of course, if you're like me, and you are, and you look back now when you watch old wrestling.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Absurd. And
they're just totally Chippendale-looking dudes, man. I mean, just... a lot of them, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And some of them are pretty, like they've got like the feathered hair and everything.
Yeah. Rick the Model Martel,
man. And don't forget his fragrance.
Arrogance.
That's right.
Yeah. He was spraying arrogance all over everyone. No, I remember being a little kid and wrestling with pillows. Mm-hmm. I mean, wrestling, that was the thing, man, is, when you're a little kid, you'd get a toy, you'd get like the newest, coolest toy. Yep. But you'd always go back to just playing in the dirt or playing with, a stick or something.
Sure.
I remember, because I got the WWF magazine like every week, and it, showed up, and I was stoked.
Monthly. I've looked at those on eBay, by the way.
Oh, I bet.
Once upon a time, I got rid of my collection. I would love to have that now. I would love to have that.
Yeah. And there was that period of time where you could buy the pillow, like the pillow wrestlers.
Like the Ultimate Warrior.
And I got Hogan.
Pillow.
I got Hogan, Randy Savage, and Terry Bollea, Hulk Hogan. And the thing about
it,
I know. The thing about it is I like fake wrestled with those ones, but after a while I just went back to the pillow. Mm-hmm. It was more malleable. I could do more with it. This is going to a very strange place. It's kind of a mindfuck, actually, now that I think of it. Have you ever heard that phrase?
I know a girl that uses that phrase.
What's her name?
I don't want to say on the podcast.
I knew a girl
in
Mexico.
Oh, man.
Her name was Carguina. Yeah. Anyways, that has nothing to do with... That was just me kind of saying that I knew someone.
Yeah.
That's not real. But I remember in the 80s.
Yeah.
Gotta love the 80s.
I do.
Just not really, just total innocence, not really knowing their wrestling was fake.
Yes.
And taking it as gospel. They were like in the 50s, in the 40s and 50s, Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle was every guy's hero.
Sure.
And Hulk Hogan was, my Mickey Mantle.
Right.
Kind of like.
Well, dude, let's list what we know about him. He's a real American.
He fights for the rights of every man.
Yeah. So.
He fights for what's right. And he fights to survive.
That's so important, man. Mm-hmm. That's so important because if you don't fight to survive, man, you might find yourself not surviving.
Speaking of survival, were you in Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts? Did you do that?
I wasn't.
Why didn't you do that? Well, I
don't know why. I don't know why I didn't. It work out that way. I really don't. I think maybe this is a guess, But I think, well, you know, I mean, I swimming lessons, t-ball, soccer, karate at the YMCA. I think it's probably pretty possible that when, you know, the sign-up sheet came home from school or whatever for the Cub Scouts, I was just, you know, had too much going on. But I could see it happening where my parents said, Geoff, if you want to do that, we're going to have to stop doing this other thing or something like that. So, I mean.
And at that age, you were already capable of weighing your options.
Yeah. Well, I remember that, of course, my little brother Colin was in the Cub Scouts, and he was in.
He was? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, just for 1 or 2 years, I guess. Yeah. He was in Danny's troop.
Oh, okay.
And their scout master or whatever was a fellow named Big Dan.
No way.
You didn't know that?
Big Dan was actually, yeah, I knew about this.
Yeah.
It's just kind of.
Well, then there was a famous soapbox derby.
Oh, yeah.
Story.
Oh, I love that story,
where
man.
Big Dan was cheating.
Yeah.
Like he just used, I forget what now, but broke the rules.
Yeah.
And made it to, and at some point maybe he won, but were disqualified when they found that their car had they were cheating.
Yeah.
And the way Danny told the story, which take it for what it's worth, was that Big Dan made a trophy and gave it to Danny and told him that he was the real winner.
That's a good dad right there.
That is a great dad. It's like, we got caught cheating, but hey, you should have won.
Today you are the winner.
Today you are the winner. What about now? But what about yourself, dude? Are you a Cub Scout?
Yeah, I did Cub Scouts when I went to, when I was a young lad. I only did it for like 2 years.
Sure.
And, I couldn't tie knots.
Yeah,
no. I don't even really remember what the activities were. I just remember I wasn't into it. I was in Indian Guides.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, when I was living in UP, we did Indian Guides.
Oh.
Indian Guides was... It was Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts or whatever for little,
Oh, it was
kids.
Sure.
Yeah.
It was the junior level.
Yeah, junior level
Pre-Cub Scouts.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And, go on camping trips or whatever, shoot arrows or,
That's cool, yeah.
Like Camp Seymour was out in Gig Harbor.
I know
used to do Camp Seymour every year.
Is that where that is? Is in Gig Harbor? Yeah, you're right. Right.
Well, it's close. No, it's further out.
Yeah, it's like Mount Purdy.
Yeah, like Key Peninsula area.
Right, right.
It's right over the Purdy Bridge and then a few miles.
Oh my goodness! I was sent there as a little kid.
Yeah.
I was there it was probably 3 freaking days or 4 days, but it was hell on earth to me. Oh my God.
Oh, it was a terrible camp.
Well, I don't know if I don't know. I'm not knocking the camp. It was just the experience that I had was horrible. Because
what kind of experience?
Well, I never told anyone this before.
Are you?
No.
Do you feel comfortable? Or?
Yeah, I do. It's just you and me and whoever has access to YouTube. So
yeah.
No. Kidding aside, I was scared of the dark and all that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I don't know how old, but I was very young, and I can remember. And I don't know. I've always been like kind of like an insomniac or something. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because everyone in the whole fucking place is asleep, and I'm just up, and I'm looking around, and I'm waiting to go to sleep, but I'm not going to sleep, and the anxiety of being awake in the dark in this cabin. Mm-hmm. And I remember it's a distant memory now, but I remember like calling whatever the boy's name in the bunk over me or under me or whatever.
Yeah.
Calling, he was asleep. I think I remember trying. Now that I think about it, I remember trying to wake him up because I was scared and whatever. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't there. And then I remember because like the camp counselor had like a little bedroom attached to the thing. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I remember in a panic, I remember going in there, and he wasn't there because he was probably out smoking reefer.
Pot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he wasn't there. And so then I thought, why isn't he here? Is there an axe murderer? You know what I mean? Like, to me, the next logical step was that maybe there's abductions. Mm-hmm. The Soviet Union might have launched a nuclear weapon. I remember being very worried about that.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure.
Right. And so I hit the light switch and turned the lights on in the whole cabin with however many, 12 boys in it or whatever. and they all just kind of like, no one did anything, woke up, or maybe they went like murmured a little bit and rolled over.
Yeah.
And I think I just went in bed and pulled the covers over my head, secure in the fact that at least there was light in the room until I eventually passed out.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, when you're a kid and you're in a dark cabin, I could see something like that going down.
Oh man, I was scared. I was I've always been a chicken shit, man. Like I was scared of what's in the closet or whatever.
Yeah. The dark is dark is a scary thing. I mean, even when you're an adult, if you have no access to the light, is kind of what makes it scary.
Exactly.
I mean, like if you're out in the wilderness with no light source, it's just it's naturally frightening to anybody.
Well, you can't see.
You can't see,
and that's obviously one of your for those of us who are sighted.
Mm-hmm. It's a crucial faculty.
It's a big thing, and it's like in not having it, one feels completely defenseless.
Yeah. Actually, I was going to go back. You were talking about the camp counselor who probably went and smoked pot while you were in the cabin, and that would have been the life. I like to think that I did everything I wanted to do up to this point, and left no stone unturned. But God, I would have loved to be a camp counselor when I was like 16 to 18 or whatever.
Yeah.
Just everybody, you get together with other people your age and you're at camp and there's no one supervising you because you're the supervisor, and you just go do whatever the fuck you want when you're done, monitoring the kids. Yeah. I mean, I just have a feeling. I've heard stories about people that were counselors, and
plus you've seen 80s movies about it.
I've seen 80s movies about it. Two. Did you ever see Wet Hot American Summer?
No.
Oh, man. Everyone out there, see it. It's
really?
Paul Rudd at his best.
Oh, no, I like Paul Rudd.
Oh, well, you're tripping. Paul Rudd's a funny guy.
Oh.
And there's other people. It's the people from The State. The MTV show. Yeah. It's so.
Is it like a parody of a 80s camp movie, or
I don't know if it's supposed to be a parody or not.
Okay, or
truthfully,
if it's just, sure.
I just know that it is a movie. It is a comedy about camp counselors. Monitoring summer camp or whatever.
Gotcha.
And I went to summer camp when I was a kid, so I identified with the funny inside jokes of summer camp, I guess. But no, it's just generally a funny movie. I remember watching it. I remember Danny was really into it. We watched it like 5 times.
Man, I think I may have Janine Garofalo.
Yeah,
she in there?
Yeah. And
maybe I have seen that.
And the guy who played he was on Reno 911.
Oh. Dangle
Dangle. Yeah.
Okay.
Dangle was in it.
I went to camp 2 times in my life. Once the Seymour, that experience I told you about, and then again, was it 6th grade camp or 5th grade camp at UP public schools? Maybe you weren't going.
I was in Catholic school.
Okay.
At that time.
So it was either 5th grade or 6th grade camp. I forget. Mm-hmm. Right. And I went to that, and I'm obviously older, but still a kid. Mm-hmm. But same shit. I'm scared of the dark. I'm not nearly as much of a kid or whatever, but I'm still scared of the dark. So I'm in the room and I'm thinking, okay, everything's okay. Again, I can't go to sleep, so I'm just sitting in this fucking dark room with, I don't know how many, 12 kids or whatever. Mm-hmm. For all I know, it might have been Camp Seymour. I don't know. But anyways, and our camp counselor, who was like a high school senior, I want to say, and again, I think my brother was 1 when he was a senior or something. Mm-hmm. But anyways, Art was the chubby, born-again Christian, probably gay guy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And so all the other camp counselors effed with him.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, guys and girls alike. Mm-hmm. So I'm laying there, and it's funny because I've got all this psycho killer, cabin in the woods, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. None of that's probably happening, right? Mm-hmm. None of that's probably going on. And so I laid in bed trying to talk myself out of the terrible whatever. Mm-hmm. And slowly the door handle opens to the cabin.
Uh-huh.
This is middle of the night by my perception anyways. Mm-hmm. So the door handle opens, the door slides open, and I'm thinking perfectly logical explanation. Mm-hmm. So maybe somebody is visiting us, maybe, you know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. In floats this hockey mask.
Okay.
Floating in the darkness.
Yeah.
A glow-in-the-dark hockey mask.
Oh, man.
And I can't tell you how hard my heart is beating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm sure that this is the death of me and everyone. Uh-huh. And, you know, this is how it's going to end. And it's funny, too, because when you're a kid, you think, like, that's... Like, I mean, what are the odds, right, that you're going to be murdered by a psycho wearing a hockey mask, right? It's just very, very slim, I would think.
Probably not very high at all.
Very, very low. Like, you probably have virtually everything else in the world to worry about before that. Mm. Yet, I thought it might happen, and sure as shit, it was happening, right? Mm-hmm. And so... I can still see this hockey mask, like looking left and right and looking around, and his eyes fixate on the chubby, born-again Christian, probably gay counselor. Mm-hmm. He looks at him and then leaps off the ground on the bed.
Yeah.
And the camp counselor goes, ah! Like that. And I'm thinking, well, you know, we're all going to die. And then you see that the wearer of the hockey mask was one of the other camp counselors, and he was with a group, and they said, let's go jump on the fag.
Oh, my God.
And so and of course, everybody woke up, and everybody, what's going on? And then the chubby, born-again, probably gay guy was like, okay, you guys. It's nothing. We'll just go back to sleep. It was just a stupid prank, and this. Yeah. And I wanted the lights left on. I didn't want the lights to go off. I had enough.
Even after you knew that it was all false.
Oh well, because that's how it always happens in the movie too, dude. It's like there's the false alarm. Then there's the real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, and again, dude, 2 out of 2 camping experiences resulted in terror.
Yeah. See, geez, you've got a memory like a steel trap, my friend, because I went to summer camp multiple times. Mm-hmm. Multiple times. I don't remember any scary stories like that. I remember falling for this chick, like, you're in like...
Oh, I know.
4th grade.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And there was this chick named Jean. Okay. She had blonde hair, beautiful blonde hair.
Yeah. Was she a pretty girl? Was she a pretty 4th grade girl or whatever?
Gorgeous.
Yeah. Gorgeous,
but she wasn't 4th grade. She was maybe like 6th grade.
Oh, no. Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, forbidden.
And I was going out with another 4th grader back at Catholic school.
Oh, my God.
And I fell for this chick. And I remember being a conniving 4th grader and coming back to school, back, as summer's over, man. I had my times. I had my good times.
Yeah.
And, my 4th grade girlfriend, she's like sitting next to me.
Yeah.
And I was, I think we must have broken up or something, like before I went to summer camp.
Sure. You wanted to, see other people.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I wanted to spread my wings and fly, but I remember writing on a piece of paper. I wrote, "I love Jean, I love Jean, I loved," over and over and over again.
Which is the Catholic school practice of writing the same sentence over and over.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, I told you about that. How I used to get in trouble and have to write sentences, and I was probably indoctrinated at that point to just. I inherently was going to do that, but no, it was like the 4th grade girl's over here. And I wanted her to know that I'd fallen for someone else.
You wanted her to know that? So were you trying to arouse jealousy?
Yeah. Okay. No, I really was. At that tender age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of amazed that you had a girlfriend in 4th grade. I don't think...
Well, no, I mean, it wasn't like a real girlfriend.
No, of course not. Of course not. Although I guess I was in 4th grade-ish is when we started asking people out. Will you go out with me?
Yeah.
Was the verbiage. And as near as I could tell, will you go out with me meant let's trade phone numbers and call each other when we're not at school, even though like we wouldn't talk to each other at school.
Yeah.
I had a couple of those.
Dude, I remember Christy and I, I'm not going to say her name. I feel disrespectful, but we were the first boy and girl to kiss each other.
Uh-huh.
And it was like it was a big deal.
Oh, I remember.
It was a big deal.
Who was in my school too?
Yeah. It's like everyone was standing around us. It's like we made an event out of it.
That's exactly what I remember too. That's funny.
Because, Catholic school couldn't have been that different than any other school for any other grade. In this community, in this area, this general area. But it's like everybody just corrals together in the morning or during recess, and we've all got, our harebrained schemes or whatever. But that's one harebrained scheme that I remember distinctly, that we were the first kiss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so weird, man. I remember seeing the first kiss at school in exactly the same setting as you're describing. We were basically everyone was in a circle around this couple, and and there was rumors that so and so was going to French kiss so and so.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah. And I remember when I saw it happen.
Yeah.
I remember butterflies in my stomach, and it was just this strange feeling. I'm sure I was jealous. You know what I mean? I'm sure I was jealous, even though it's hard to imagine. Can you imagine adults doing that?
Oh my God!
Know?
Yeah.
Other than I guess the wedding ceremony, but but it was everyone's just gawking, and it was it was almost exactly the same as a fight where they would circle around, and it's everyone would kind of cheer for two people to fight each other. It was the same thing where it was just kiss her, dude. Kiss her.
Yeah.
And then that, and I remember it was and I guess they were just doing impressions of what they had seen on TV.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, which is what we all do, anyways.
Yeah,
but I remember he kind of looked tender, and she just they both kind of cocked their heads to the side and just and closed their eyes, of course.
Yeah,
and then of course the sound that arose from the crowd was.
Yeah. Were you one of those kids that kissed the mirror?
No, I didn't do that.
I didn't do that.
Not that I recollect. I didn't do that. I did. When I was real young, I do remember like putting mousse in my hair and combing my hair, and fancying that I might look handsome to go meet a girl. Or
yeah, man, I fancy that I'm handsome every day.
Man,
yeah.
I'm handsome that I'm fancy every day. You know what I'm saying?
Nice. So, what's going on with the ladies?
Well, I've been on a couple dates in the last little while, which is nice because I'm the kind of guy that goes on long hiatuses or whatever. I'll tell you what's up with the ladies, man, is that I take a serotonin reuptake inhibitor drug that is good for my depression and good for my anxiety, bad for my sex drive. And it's I consider it at least kind of a positive side effect because I don't get involved, like my dick doesn't do the thinking for me, so that I get involved in some relationship where I just, don't like some chick, but I'm not thinking clearly.
Purely sexual.
Well, I'm not thinking clearly, and then, I mean, I'm an old man now, but...
you probably last longer, too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do know what you're saying.
That's for the ladies to know.
Yeah, no, it's...
well, good for you, man. I mean, going on a couple dates.
Going on a couple dates,
some prospects.
Some people, I don't know. Yeah. Throwing my hat in the ring there. Oh.
That was me a couple months ago.
Okay, yeah, you were doing that. Yeah. I remember, actually, yeah. Now
I feel like I'm walking in a vaginal Sahara. Water! But, how you meet these chicks?
Well, I, online dating. Well, I say meet these chicks. There's been literally 2 dates in the last however long. One was a result of online dating, and one was a friend set me up.
Gotcha.
And one went pretty good. One didn't go well, but I mean, no harm, no foul.
Yeah. Yeah. You moved on. It's like that. It's one of many Tony Braxton songs about moving on. Oh, you're moving on.
Take your pick.
Yeah.
Take your pick
of those
from the
hits.
Tony Braxton catalog. Yeah. So that's going on. I'll tell you what, man. It's kind of a weird thing. I've said this before. Thought it before. It's a weird thing I'm 36 years old now. Mm-hmm. And at first it was like, I had a couple serious girlfriends, and I said, well, we'll get married later, mm-hmm. or if at all,
Yeah.
And then, one thing leads to another, and then I'm kind of on the far side of the peak as far as age of getting married, mm-hmm. and certainly age for having kids. I'm, old man,
Oh man.
Well, I'm not being self-deprecating or anything. Or
melodramatic.
It's just the freaking reality of it, Yeah. And I'll tell you what, man. Like I am prepared for that. Like it doesn't. I'm kind of expecting to be a bachelor or whatever, or be that uncle or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't bother me. Something else. I don't know if you found this to be the case, but kind of the older you get, the more set in your ways, as the saying goes,
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the less excited I am about like sharing my bed or kind of having
mm-hmm.
to answer to someone the way you do when you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
I really like that. I mean, it's not that I use my freedom, mm-hmm. but I do have it.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that.
Well, that's the most important thing about freedom, right? Is having it in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying I disagree with you, but I don't want to be controlled by someone else, but I think there's a lot of value.
Oh, no, there is. I mean, two people bring out the best in each other. That can happen.
Yeah. It can also be the opposite.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially in divorce. I mean.
Well, geez Louise. I've never had a breakup. I mean, I've had 3 pretty serious breakups, I guess, in my life. Mm-hmm. And I've never had a breakup that was as ugly as some people's divorces, like that are
mm-hmm.
married 20 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine. I'll give you a story if you want. I was doing a refinance for a gal who was divorced,
mm-hmm.
and the divorce was old by this time, and long story short, just because a judge says you get the house and you don't get the house, mm-hmm. it doesn't affect the loan. Like there's a loan on the house, and mm-hmm. this person can be obligated to pay it, and this person not. But both parties have already made an agreement with the bank, mm-hmm. and so the bank can say, "Where's our money?" And then I think kind of the burden of proof is on them to say, "Oh no, I really don't owe you that money because the judge said they have to pay you," mm-hmm. or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so it happens that people get divorced and then they go to buy a house, and that someone says, "You can't buy a house, you already have a house." And they say, mm-hmm. "No, I don't." And then my wife got that in the divorce, and they say, "Well, mm-hmm. Not according to your credit report." But anyways, mm-hmm. So this I was doing it for this gal, nice, really, really nice gal, nice nice lady, pretty, particularly for her, age and all that. Mm-hmm. And coincidentally, I worked next door to the place where her husband worked. Mm-hmm. And her husband came in because the refinance happened, and he wanted to know where the money from the escrow account went. Mm-hmm. And it was really weird and awkward, and he didn't know that I was the one who did the thing, and so I just mm-hmm. kind of hid from him. But I called a judge that I know mm-hmm. because I was curious, like, am I in trouble or something? Because all the people I work with said, just don't get involved, don't, it's whatever. And it sounds like the prevailing law is that the escrow account, no one ever makes a separate provision for that. Like when the judge says you get the house and you assume the loan, mm-hmm. They'd never say, and the $1,500 that's in the escrow account should be split evenly or whatever. It's just not, they don't address it. It's just mm-hmm. considered part of the loan package. Anyways, this guy was fighting over what may amount to be a couple $1,000. Mm-hmm. And he was like calling her, getting a lawyer involved, mm-hmm. and both of these people made over $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so, but he was like taking time out of his day to chase his ex-wife, and the divorce is a couple years mm-hmm. done over. And he was trying to fight her over half of $2,000 that by, you have to make a stretch to make the case that it even could be considered his. Mm-hmm. But it's, you know what I mean? Like if I get divorced from someone and 2 years later there's a question that maybe they owe me $1,000, man, I'm saying forget it and move on. Mm-hmm. Especially if I'm one of those 7-figure niggas, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Or at least a 6-figure nigga.
Mm-hmm. I just, it's sort of like a war of attrition at some point.
Oh my God, man. Well, why? It's only out of spite. Nobody's doing that because, he was wrong in the first place. It wasn't his $1,000. Mm. But even if it was, why would he chase her around 2 years later?
It's the principle of the thing.
Well, right.
Yeah.
And it's freaking vindictiveness. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. And people are so ugly in divorces. I have seen that a lot.
And then you get the kids involved, and that's a whole different animal. There is people get way more emotional about kids than they do about each other. Even though, like what you're saying, is a classic example of the pettiness of divorce.
Right. It's ugly.
Yeah. But it's like when kids get involved, that's when the gloves come off. I think, kind of.
Well, and I'll tell you what though. it's like. It goes to show how selfish and shitty people are. Mm-hmm. That, like, why wouldn't you want the best for the mother of your children? And I'm not trying to sound like Prince Charming here, but mm-hmm. I can't imagine, I can't imagine hating the mother of my children. Mm-hmm. But if I did, like, you didn't see that coming. Like, say your wife's a psycho bitch.
Yeah.
Like. But you didn't know that until 20 years later, mm-hmm. Or like after the kid or whatever. Like
you went through it all.
Yeah. It's like that's why you date before you get married. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh my goodness me.
Yeah.
And I can't see. And the thing is, let me tell you something. I can talk authoritatively on the subject because I haven't fucked up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People say,
I
well,
can appreciate that.
Yeah, well, you're single, you don't know what it's like to be married. No, but I know what it's like to not marry wrongly.
Yeah.
You know? And the same thing with parenting. It's like, okay, well, you don't have kids. How do you know it's not a good idea? And it's like, well, I'm not an expert, but I'm not the one who fucked up and had the fucking kids you weren't prepared to take care of or whatever. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think to some degree, on being on the outside or whatever you want to call it, not having a child, I think to some degree, we can't pass judgment on everything parents do, but I think on an objective level, there's certain things that any person would find ridiculous about raising a child.
Yeah.
I don't think that,
Well, of course we can pass judgment, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what?
Like, well, if say a mom is yelling at her kid in anger, like clearly, like you're a target, and mom is yelling at the kid in anger.
Yeah.
That's wrong whether or not the person who observes it has a kid or not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that, that's what it is. Like, you don't have to have a kid or not have a kid to know that you shouldn't yell at children in anger.
Totally.
And then the other long list of horrible things they do. But similarly, like, just because you're a dumb shit and got knocked up by some, you know what I mean? Like, say you're some stupid whore who, is more than willing to trade sexual activity for superficial affection. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's how I lost my virginity. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too.
So you do that, and it's like, and then you get pregnant, okay, and then you got some kid. Now you have qualifications, like because you fucked up, and I don't buy it.
Well, I find the people that are often calling someone out for criticizing married couples and married couples with children are not the parents themselves saying, don't you call me out for raising my kid. I think it's other married people or other people in general that make that statement. At least in my experience, if I ever say something about the way someone's raising their child, it's it's never to that person.
Not very often, no.
At least if I do say it to them, if I do ever criticize a married couple or whatever, they're not the only ones that are going to call me out and say, well, you're not really equipped to judge. But anyways, I mean.
Yeah. I think just the whole notion, I feel like it's more prevalent in the last, I don't know, decade or something. But the whole notion that we shouldn't judge each other is just it's kind of nonsense. I mean, like we should maybe not make prejudgments, Yeah. But yeah. I mean, why wouldn't I? If you're raising a couple kids and got a pretty strong cocaine habit. Like, what, I'm just supposed to I'm not saying I'm going to call CPS, depending on the age of the kids, or I'm not saying I'm going to rush and involve myself in it, but I'm not just going to try to keep my mind scrubbed clean of any assessment of that. You know what I mean? I feel completely good about saying, oh, that's fucked up. That person shouldn't be doing that. I don't have any misgivings whatsoever, or, almost you name it, man. Like, you send your kids to a Montessori school, I have an opinion on that, whether it's right or wrong, and I don't see why I have to apologize. No, if I don't know, if I do some kind of action to a person in retaliation for, what my judgment of them is or something like that, maybe that's different. You know what I mean? But then the crime isn't really judgment. The crime is whatever action I'm doing to them.
Well, playing devil's advocate,
Sure.
I think it depends on the quantity of our criticisms. I think if we spend too much time dwelling on what other people do, it diminishes what we're saying and the criticisms we have. Sort of like if we're constantly talking about what one person is doing, it diminishes what you have to say. I mean,
that could be. But you're talking about
it certainly can be.
Right.
I mean,
you're talking about what, diluting your expressing your opinion so often that it's diluted?
Yeah. I mean, if we want to call it judging people or observing people or criticizing people, whatever it is, I mean, if we spend too much time doing that, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that, if we dwell too much on what other people are doing, it makes other people say, well, what are you doing?
Sure. Well, and then they have that right to judge me, But, certainly it's not a worthwhile use of life to just criticize other people. I mean, I'd certainly agree with that, But I also, I don't feel any remorse about...
Oh, I'm not saying you should.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should.
No, I've just been across a lot of tables from people who say, I do this, that, and the other thing. Don't judge me. And I think to myself, well, why the hell not? Why wouldn't I? I don't know. And especially, I think some people too. I mean, I think you hear that a lot from people that are very insecure, or maybe even suspect that they're not doing the right thing. They're in particular, they don't want you to judge them. Well,
yeah, I mean, the old adage, judge not lest ye be judged. Well, that only matters if you care about being judged. I mean, I'm saying that the person who judges, it only really matters if they care about being judged. So we're free to judge others, and how that affects us and how we respond to being judged is irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, it goes like the old saying about, you don't judge a man until you walk a mile in his moccasins or shoes.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? That also kind of, and I'm a bit of a snob this way, I guess, in other ways. But I feel like their experience isn't necessarily relevant. You know what I mean? Like, if the example is the guy who's well, he yells at his kid. I don't know why I keep doing parenting things, but it's like he yells at his kid, and it's like, well, you got to understand. I mean, his dad was like he was a drunk and blah 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 blah. And it's like, okay. So it's not bad that he yells at his kid because, you know what I mean? So it's like, I again, I'm a moral absolutist, you know, and I believe in absolute truths. And, so I feel like in a sense, it doesn't really matter what your, background is as far as it relates to what actions you're taking. You know, I mean, certainly the inner city Chicago, you know, poor kid is more likely to be involved in crime and everything. And you could even say it's slightly more forgivable or something like that, but it's not like it's good or even okay, you know?
Yeah.
Regardless of someone's. So in that sense, it's like, I don't believe in taking, you know, I'm not necessarily sure I believe that and I guess I'm talking about specific instances, but, you know, wrong behavior is wrong behavior. Sure.
I agree. I think a lot of people say, they make the argument, well, you have to consider the context in which this person is acting. And no, I mean, it's not eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth kind of thing, but it is hitting someone in the face is wrong. It's still hitting someone in the face.
Right. It's like, well, that's just how he expresses himself. He's just that violent, you know what I mean? When he grew up, he comes from that background.
Well, we're rational animals, and we're trying to make sense of our own ridiculous behavior.
Yes.
You know? I think that's common, and it's very human for us to do that.
Right.
But it's also human for us to criticize other people and observe what we think is right and what's wrong. I just think it's a way to generate dialogue about how people can change. Sure. Consider the environment they grew up in. That's, you know, someone saying that is like them saying indirectly that it's a tragedy that this person grew up this way, and it's a tragedy that being at point A led to point B, so let's change point A so it doesn't happen again. And that's why we have those kind of discussions, don't you think?
Well, if that's true, then yeah. I mean, I think sometimes that's the case. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think it's also an excuse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I agree totally that it's an excuse. But I'm just saying that that's another reason why people talk that way.
Yeah.
It's not a percentages thing. It's like even if when they say that, it's only 5% of the time they're talking about, is something cool going on over there?
No, me?
No.
I just monitoring my text messages.
But like
percentage-wise?
Yeah, percentage-wise. Like I would agree that certainly 99 out of 100 times they're doing it as an excuse, but I think it's rooted in people saying, "Oh, this is bad, let's fix that," or "This is bad, and that's probably why they're acting that way, so maybe if this happened, that wouldn't happen."
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's. I think you're right. I think probably the people who began that language were thinking exactly in those terms. Yeah. Like, hey, this is a great chance for us to direct attention to this particular situation, and let's solve. Let's not worry about the symptom. Let's deal with the cause.
Yeah.
Something like that, and that makes a lot of sense in the world. But then, I think, like in my mind's eye or whatever, like my little scenario going through my head right now, I see the mom at the courthouse talking to the judge or whatever, saying, "You have to understand, my baby is, the product of this kind of thing," and or whatever. It's like, the people that are shouting that shit are making excuses for themselves or for their loved ones or whatever. Yeah. They're doing the typical selfish human being thing,
Yeah.
Or in some cases they are, there's nothing more loathsome than the politician or whatever who is, for fear of offending someone by implying that they should take responsibility for their own actions or whatever. You know what I mean? They want to just speak in these general terms and, hey, let's not, whatever. I'll give you a wild example is and to my shame, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I want to say Eric Taves.
Yeah, Taves.
Is that what, who, I knew very, very casually, not, whatever. I knew, was very, very briefly acquainted with him and stuff. But he was the guy who was in, was it right around the year 2000, plus or minus a little? I don't know.
Yeah.
Beaten to death. I mean, just this wanton act of cruelty. I mean, just no rhyme or reason to it. A group of young teenagers of mixed ethnicity, I think, from a shitty part of town.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, kind of bizarrely spread apart age-wise. Like, there was a 12-year-old and there was a 19-year-old and in between or something like that.
Yeah.
But they walked around for a little while, beating the hell out of some people. I, to this day, am convinced I crossed paths with them on Tacoma Avenue. Because I remember thinking, what the fuck is up with this gang? Like, one of them was carrying a croquet mallet. Yeah. I'm sure it was the same group, right?
Yeah.
And I remember walking by them. But anyways, scared shitless, really. I remember I was kind of like, this doesn't seem right. And I remember and I'm a pussy, you know, but I said, hey, what's up, guys? In an attempt to, like, I made eye contact, I spoke up, and I just wanted to, like, let them know that I was observing them, or just even put forth this little bit of fake bravado.
Yeah.
And as soon as I walked past them, I turned around and watched them walk away, because that's how they got Eric, you know.
Yeah.
Like, they asked him for a cigarette, he handed them a cigarette, I think. And then someone snuck up behind him and hit him with something, and then they just beat him to death with fists and legs and weapons, you know, blunt weapons. And he ended up dying in the hospital with of concussions and whatever, you know. But I mean, just for no good reason. No reason other than they like the Johnny Cash song. They killed a man just to watch him die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but I remember going to this, like, town hall meeting, and I remember, because it's a small town, right? And I remember some gal stood up who I knew when she was younger, and she appeared to be pushing a stroller with a racially mixed baby, right? But I remember noticing her, and I knew that she dated some guy anyways. But she was a couple rows down. It's a very strange, tense environment. It's like the cops, the Tacoma Police Department, were, like, addressing the public, holding a public meeting about this. And tempers were flaring and all that kind of thing. And I remember that somebody took the mic and made the statement that, listen, I don't think that this should be used as a, platform or an excuse to begin racial profiling. And a few of the crowd, I want to say a minority of the crowd, applauded. But I remember this gal that I knew down a couple seats down. I remember she stood up and said, "Yeah!" Just screamed "yeah" and clapped really hard. And I thought to myself, like, why is she so passionate about that? I mean, like, this is that's what she's concerned about. Is like, hey, I understand this group of kids beat this man to death, as well as a few other men who survived their injuries.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, all happen to be, white males in this particular age group. You know what I mean? So you could make the argument that they were racially profiling. I think they were, because white males in that age group are a lot less scary than some other people. But they said, and all by themselves. But I'm like, why would you have the fucking balls to just roariously applaud that? You know what I mean? Like, you're here cheering. I mean, you don't sound like you're, and maybe I'm an asshole, right? But it's like, you don't sound like you're on the side of the victim here.
Yeah, yeah.
My feeling is that you should be more sensitive to the victim.
Yeah, that's outrageous.
I thought so.
Yeah, definitely.
I think I told the story just because you could say, like, well, we shouldn't racially profile. And it's like, well, sure, that's true. But why are you saying that? Why do you think this is a good forum for that, or whatever?
Yeah, yeah. I find that the people that are like that, they always choose moments like that. They always choose moments like that when you should just be focusing on, a person's dead.
Oh, it's an easy time to, like, not.
Yeah. It's like when the NRA shows up. The NRA shows up
to the school shooting.
Yeah, school shooting, and now's the time for us to celebrate gun rights. Yeah, yeah.
That's a weird one. That's a really weird one.
Well, it's like they harness the public fervor to get attention. It's an organization, so sure, it's different. But how different?
Yeah, well, I don't. The gun thing is a really interesting topic for me. I just can't understand why in the world. I just cannot. I mean, I understand some of the viewpoints, and I don't mean I agree with, but I mean I understand, which is kind of a rare thing, by the way. I mean, there's plenty of people that don't understand people's viewpoints, you know.
Yeah.
But I understand their viewpoints. They don't want to be disarmed. They're afraid of a police state. Mm-hmm. They believe that they have a constitutional right, and I don't say that they don't. I'm just saying that that's their fervently held belief, is that they have a constitutional right to bear arms.
They absolutely do.
Yeah. I mean, what about the regulated militia thing in there? I mean, I don't read it. I don't pretend to follow it, but because I've heard opponents say that they're not a regulated militia.
I don't know. I don't know what's meant by that.
Well, I mean, what amendment is it? The
Second Amendment.
Second Amendment.
It's a well-regulated militia. I don't know the history behind that. I know. I mean,
I just frankly don't know the verbiage of the amendment.
Yeah. I just know the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the only language I know. And yeah, I remember the phrase well-regulated militia. But no, I don't recall anything about that. I've never even heard that argument, honestly.
Yeah, I just Facebook or whatever.
Oh.
But I mean,
what's the idea? I mean,
I think the idea.
The opponents are saying that there shall be a well-regulated militia, so they're arguing that by proxy, that was the founders saying that implicitly in the future they could be regulated.
They're saying that you can't. I don't know. I'm really kind of talking to my ass here, you know. But I think the argument is that the Second Amendment doesn't say anyone who wants a gun can have one. They're saying that the government cannot stop a well-regulated militia from arming themselves or something like that. I don't know. I haven't the first clue if that's what the amendment says.
Yeah.
But I think maybe that's what they're getting at.
The only thing I know about the Second Amendment is the word arms is heavily debated about, like what arms means in a modern society. But the well-regulated militia thing, that's I mean, it's an interesting argument to be made. But no, the Second Amendment's a big deal, man.
No, yeah. Well, but here's I mean, I've also heard an argument that I don't like, which is that, hey, the Constitution, the world changes and we shouldn't be stuck to the Constitution or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. That's very much paraphrasing it, right? Mm-hmm.
Well, there's the living Constitution argument and there's the originalist argument. It's like stick to the language of the Constitution versus world's constantly changing. It's a living document.
Right. Yeah. And I think this is a third position, though, and which is kind of a little bit snotty. Hey, come on. Almost kind of treating the Constitution like some people might treat the Bible, or you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
kind of saying it doesn't. Hey, when they wrote that, they didn't know about this stuff. Not let's amend the Constitution, but just what's the big deal? It's an old document. It's kind of what I think the sentiment is. I don't know, but and I don't like that. I mean, I like the I like the idea that you stick to some text that you set out to stick to. You know what I mean? I mean, it defeats the purpose of I mean, it defeats the purpose of having the text if you're free to deviate from it. In a little way.
Well, I mean, not to be too academic here, but Chief Justice John Marshall said in the case that really established the power of the United States Supreme Court, said we are here to expound upon an outline. They called the Constitution an outline for our behavior, and I feel like using the word outline, it creates a lot of gray areas.
Right.
So that's where the living Constitution argument comes from. But then there's the absolutes on the other side. So it's like an outline is sort of loosely defines what the Constitution is. So I mean, yeah, I'm drawing a blank on what I want to say next. I honestly, I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh. I was getting it though.
Well, no,
and I respect your authoritative on the subject.
Well, no. I think let's forget that the last 30 seconds happened and get back to what you were saying.
Oh, well, I mean, I like the fact there's a Constitution, even if I don't know what it says.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I know whatever I've learned about it at times and read parts of it at times, whatever. But just the gun conversation, to me, is my conflict with the gun thing is that basically I don't want to side with liberals, you know, or whatever. Like I don't want to. I'm so nervous. Like the people, you know, the really anti-gun people, I just disagree with about so many things. And the pro-gun people, in a lot of cases, I agree with about a lot of things. And so that's where I'm conflicted. And part of me is like, am I missing something? You know what I mean? But I just don't understand why. I don't understand why anybody would want to own one of the horrible, dreadful things. I mean, I know why they would, but I don't consider it good reasons. You know what I mean? Like I used to say, you know, I don't want a gun in my house because God forbid someone comes in and steals my VCR and I become a murderer or whatever, or I shoot them dead. You know what I mean? And I carry that around in my conscience. I'd rather they leave with my VCR than they leave with my self-respect or whatever. You know what I mean? You know.
Yeah, I mean, the issue I have with gun advocates is they talk about the intent of the framers of our Constitution, and they said, you know, the right to bear arms shall be absolute; it shall not be infringed. Therefore, whatever gun I have is protected by the Second Amendment. And you know, I'm with the living constitutionalists on this argument because if you want to argue framers' intent, did the framers intend that people could buy automatic rifles and carry automatic rifles? At the time the Constitution was drafted and ratified, we had single-shot muskets.
Right, although those were the top-of-the-line guns at the time.
Yeah.
So it stands to reason. I mean, where I think I would kind of disagree with that is that it's, you know what I mean? Like the framers of the Constitution didn't say you're allowed to have mild, moderate guns or not. You know what I mean? Like if the framers of the Constitution wanted, my understanding is that they can't be disarmed for the, you know, police state reasons and shit like that. If you're playing by those rules and saying that the reason that citizens have the right to bear arms is to kind of defend themselves from the government, then it makes all the sense in the world that they should have the top of the line, most killing machine guns.
Yeah, but I mean, that kind of goes back to what I scatterbrainedly described as the outline. A constitution is an outline, and you have to define what arms are before we have that. I mean, I see what you're saying. I see that the Constitution was born out of a distrust of government.
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely was. Absolutely was. But, I mean, and you're right, you know, muskets were the top of the line. They were the top of the line weapon at the time.
Right.
But, I mean, I feel like, yeah, I don't have any thoughts. I don't know. Let's cut the podcast, man.
Losing the concentration line.
Yeah.